All right.
Yep. Yep. Okay, welcome to episode 8 of Talking South with my guest Jennifer Hynes.
Oh, hey, Torsten. Good to be here.
Good to see you back. So, what's up? What's been going on in the land of America in the Thanksgiving weekend?
Well, over here in the U.S., we like to bury things. So we have buried the fourth climate report the day after Thanksgiving, but burying it doesn't really change the truth. And it is seeming to get traction here, especially on the more liberal mass media TV stations and things like that. So it's very odd because this report, of course, was sponsored and produced by the Trump administration. And he has an extreme case of administration schizophrenia, I believe, because on one side, this report is incredibly dire, and it's, got loads and loads of references, and it's more dire than, it's exactly what, you and I have been talking about for years. And so it's sponsored and produced by the Trump administration, and then he comes out and of course he denies it. So it's very interesting. We have schizophrenia right inside the Trump administration, which is not really all that surprising, I guess.
Isn't it like the second very dire climate report from the White House in a couple of months?
Was there another
There
one
was
that
one
they
from the
put out?
transportation.
Oh.
Yeah, there was one from the Transportation Efficiency Board or something, and it also said that we were basically fucked, and Donald Trump was like, what report? I don't know.
Yeah. So it's not surprising.
So maybe not,
but a lot of people are challenging him about his views on climate, and I find it very interesting that he's kind of an intuitive when it comes to this. So he has intuited that it's a hoax and that it's not really real, that climate change is not really being impacted by human activity.
But maybe it's like the deep state, and if you remember from BBC, you had the Yes Minister and Yes Prime Minister. So you have the apparatus that is constant in the halls of the government. Then you have a new prime minister or a new president, and it's like only a shifting figure, and it's not really important who is holding the title, at the moment, because the apparatus and the establishment is doing their own thing anyway. So
yes, indeed. So anyway, it does seem that since we talked last, I believe that was probably last month, a lot of things have been going on. My God, I feel like things have just gotten so intense and picked up so much, because last time when we talked, I don't think that we were having the Paradise Fire and the Woolsey Fire and, all these things. Was that going on?
And also the rebellion in London,
of course. Extinction Rebellion is taking off, and they're shutting down major arteries and getting, their point across. Have you heard if it's being effective, or how are the people at large responding to Extinction Rebellion in London? Because clearly, when they do their demonstrations, it's going to snarl like all the major arteries. So you're getting a lot of attention. And I know there are a lot of arrests that are taking place in Extinction Rebellion. They're getting arrested for their demonstrations.
I think here in Greenland, it's like we have like one street with the street lights, and you have it's like if you want to stop some cars, you'd have to wait for 10, maybe 20 minutes before a car would get here. But anyway, because Greenland is a part of Denmark, in the Kingdom of Denmark, we have a Danish queen. So there's been some questions about when are you going to do something in Greenland, for the rebellion, and I'm asking myself the same question because I don't know any people up here who are in the rebellion, so I'm just gonna have to wait like a week or so and see what happens. Have a cup of coffee with the rebellion. I don't know.
Why don't you go sit on your pet iceberg?
Yeah.
Or your pet glacier.
Yes.
Do you have a pet glacier?
Yeah. I think my pet glacier here in Greenland would be the inland ice sheet thing, because it's like all over, and you almost only have the one big one and not the smaller ones. But I don't know. It's nice and quiet and not much rebellion going on up here anyway. But I know that Copenhagen and Stockholm is having things, and Aarhus in Denmark. So it's spreading pretty fast.
It is. Well, I think the
Norway,
awareness, the awareness of the climate situation is becoming more commonplace. Like 5 or 6 years ago, you and I would have been like very much on the bleeding edge, right? I mean, who was talking about all these things, and you guys are alarmists and you guys are crazy and all this stuff. And now I mean, it's actually permeating into the mass consciousness of a certain sort of aware group of people. That's not to say that Fox News is talking about these things, but of the certain sort of people, it's become part and parcel of the fabric of consciousness now.
Yeah, and interesting thing about the media is that Norway has not covered it at all. It's only one tiny blog that's written about it in Norwegian, about the entire rebellion. And even in London, you got the BBC. They have like BBC TV, different channels, and radio. And as far as I know, their website, the BBC website, is the only one that has ever mentioned Extinction Rebellion. So the way these things work is that they don't want to bother your old mother or grandmother watching TV. They are supposed to not know about it, Then they put it on the website for the young people, just to pretend they are not censoring this stuff, but they are censoring it, So,
yeah, well, maybe.
So that was my one clue. That was my first clue that the Extinction Rebellion was for real, but the BBC didn't cover it, because if they covered it, it would be sort of a wanted rebellion, a fake rebellion.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
Hmm.
So also, since last time we talked, we've hosted a pretty big video that's taken off on your channel, Going South. And it's Hothouse Earth trajectories of the Earth system in the Anthropocene. And in just a little bit over a week, it's garnered over 6,600 views. So it's gotten a lot of, it seems to be making the circuit. What would you say?
Absolutely. My first experience when I uploaded it when I got it from you was that it was censored. Only in one country, only in New Zealand was the only country where YouTube couldn't play Hothouse Earth. Maybe that's because of the political situation in New Zealand. I don't know.
Oh, the copyright Nazis don't have enough to do in New Zealand, so they get very active. That was actually censored copyright infringement for Discovery Channel footage, I believe. So, yeah. But it seems to be playing everywhere else. I haven't heard any other countries that it was censored in. Have you?
About copyright, I made a rant a couple of weeks ago where I included Mr. Churchill, Winston Churchill, from
Yes,
his
yes.
1940 address
That was a great
for
cut.
in the Parliament. And the incredible thing is that both YouTube and Facebook censored his speech. Like, oh no, I was taking away the income from his relatives and his children, and I was a big bad man, taking the bread out of their mouths. How can that be copyrighted? I mean, come on. He made a
Yeah.
public speech. He was the prime minister, paid for by the British people and everything, broadcast on BBC. And how can they still own the copyright? I can't understand.
Exactly. And I mean, there's got to be some sort of statute of limitations for things like that.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that was well over
It's almost
what,
like we can go
60,
through
70? That was 70 years ago that he gave that speech, over 70 years ago.
78 years ago.
Oh, good Lord.
78 years.
Get over
It's
it.
almost like you can go through World War III and everything is turned to rubble, and it's still not legal to play Churchill's speech, on whatever thing we got after World War III.
It's just perfect. It's just perfect. I mean, that's just the way things are right now. So.
But you've been working on some other video project, haven't you?
Yeah, I have. So I should kind of clarify a little bit. I'm working with Dougie the Abolitionist, and he is host of a show that plays in Atlanta, Georgia, live for 2 hours every Saturday afternoon in Atlanta, Georgia on WIGO. Voices of Dissent plays, and it's a damn good show. It's punchy, it's edgy, it's got great music, and they cover a lot of issues. It's primarily a Black channel, so they cover Black disenfranchisement, and they cover Black incarceration, over incarceration, and now they cover climate change. And it was actually the watching of the methane monster, which was recommended to Dougie by one of his friends. And it completely changed his reporting. So, now, yeah, I mean, now he's a huge climate change activist. And it was the Arctic methane monster's rapid rise that gave him that initial wake up. So, that's good because, that's what we want to do. We want to wake people up, and also people who are in places of influence, like people who have radio shows, that's pretty cool, So I was on his show last Saturday. I've been on his show several times, and we're taking a look at the new project that we're going to be working on. We're going to be doing a new video together. And I hope that I can make it as good as Hothouse Earth. I had a lot of footage help with Hothouse Earth that made it a little bit easier. But let's see, this new one is going to be how extreme weather is shrinking the planet. And it was an article that came out in the New Yorker by Bill McKibben. And so we've already mixed it. We've got some very good kind of, tension-filled mood music in the background, to kind of keep it interesting. And, now the next task is to try and get both stills and imagery to match the content. It's about 48 minutes long, so it'll be another, almost an hour video, but I don't know exactly when I'll get it done, so it's a lot of work to put together the video portion. It takes a long time. It's not quite as easy as doing the music mixing,
No, just remember to just forget about Winston Churchill, because you're only looking for trouble if you include him.
Yeah, no kidding.
Even though I think his speech is quite good, because it's like he's he knows it's a huge battle, and it's going to last for many years. I think the speech is excellent, but and people are all the time talking about that we need a World War II effort, in order to turn our societies around and go into this huge battle. So, but the speech itself is not legal to use. I have to say something that I think about the Extinction Rebellion, because the way I work with these things is that I look at the whole picture, and then I look at it from another angle, and go all around the thing, and do a lot of thinking about it. And it's kind of like that song, "Smells Like Teen Spirit" from Nirvana. You remember that? It smells like Teen Spirit. It's an old punk hit from the Stone Age, But it's like when you see the rebellion on the streets, it's like it looks very fresh, and it looks very, very sort of up and coming and expanding, and lots of youthful energy.
Yeah.
I think it's sort of good overall, but the only problem I have with it is that it's not going to stop runaway climate change. That's sort of my only
well, there's that.
So to me, it's the only it's the best non-successive thing you could do. It's like if you can't beat this thing anyway, the best way you can spend your time is like join the rebellion. But it's not going to solve anything. So,
no,
I don't know.
It won't have any effect probably, unless maybe at the very most optimistic, it could possibly soften the blow a little bit if the awareness spreads to everybody and we go to completely renewable. At least we wouldn't be putting as much carbon into the atmosphere. But that being said, you and I know too much, and we also know that even if we stop all carbon dioxide emissions today, it's still gonna all just end up terrible, for a variety of different reasons. We could start, but that's like a whole huge conversation for another time. But
yeah. But it's interesting to follow. And what I've been doing for the past week or so is that I've started making a compilation. First, I did a daily compilation of videos from Extinction Rebellion, and when I found that was too much work, so now I'm only making a weekly playlist. Instead of making a video, I'm just making a playlist for the rebellion clips that come online. And so that's another thing that you can that subscribers on my channel can ongoing south, they can find every Tuesday or something. They can find the best video reporting about the rebellion in Europe and America in one playlist. Just make some coffee or popcorn or whatever, and and go through the whole playlist for 1 week. Yeah.
It sounds like gripping viewing.
It is pretty cool.
It actually is. I watched some of it, and it is very interesting because it is. This is history that we're watching. This is the first time that people are really rising up with the knowledge that extinction is on the other side of them.
Yeah, and the latest chapter for Extinction Rebellion is San Francisco Bay Area, and so one of these days you may see a banner on Golden Gate, or a big massive demonstration on Golden Gate, maybe a blockage, I don't know. So
Well, it's
it's gonna
good,
rock.
I mean, there's something kind of noble about it, don't you think? I mean, it's like people are just, standing up and speaking out and willing to get arrested and do nonviolent disruptions. I think that's very good. It's noble. At least we're doing something, right? I mean, for our own human spirit, if nothing else, the result is unfortunately probably going to be the same.
Yeah, and you also have this old saying that young people should revolt. It's like uh, it's a good thing for young spirits and young people to revolt because it keeps you alive, keeps the spirit alive, and
Hmm.
it's kind
Absolutely.
of natural to be conservative and grumpy when you're old, like me. But when you're young, you're supposed to be full of energy and spirit, uh,
Well, there you go.
raise havoc. Uh,
There's
so
a time and place for everything, I mean, you've got to know what you're good at, and you've got to know what your strengths are, and you've got to know what your own purpose is within, the movement itself, the awareness movement, whatever you want to call it. And some of us
uh,
are really probably a bit too introverted to march and do the whole rebellion business. But, I salute all of those participants and all those who are making a difference in that awareness and snarling up the traffic at the same time.
yeah, I think if there's ever Extinction Rebellion in Greenland, I will be like on the polar bear watch, watching out for polar bears while the young people are sitting down in the street, or I don't know, or maybe handing them some hot coffee or whatever. Uh, my activist days are over, and it's like something happens. You feel like one little sort of tremble in your foot or something that you kind of feel like joining it, but you know maybe it's time to lay that to rest. I don't know. What do you think? Are you going to join the rebellion?
Well, I kind of think like I'm a rebellion all in my own right. I think my videos are a rebellion. They're spreading consciousness and
Mm,
awareness. So I'm
absolutely.
like a one woman rebellion.
A one woman riot.
Yeah, but you know what? I
Yeah.
mean, the thing is, everybody is pitching in together. Like you're hosting the videos, it's helping your station. Dougie is doing the music mixing, and
Mm,
if not like a black radio host in Atlanta, Georgia, who has professional equipment and access to good music, I mean, come on, that's like a marriage made in heaven,
mm,
right? And so we're all pitching in. However we can in our information activism or our physical activism. I think every type of activism is valuable. And however people feel moved to show up, everybody's going to have possibly a little bit of a different expression on it depending on who they are, right? You have to know who you are and who you can be to this mounting awareness that's, currently like a pingo in the Arctic. It's going to explode.
yeah. And that's kind of the interesting or most positive thing about it is that everybody shares the same Arctic. Everybody shares the same, let's call it disaster area or a potential disaster. So everybody even from Russia and China and Japan and Europe and America can actually join together in a common cause, because it's not like the Russian Arctic and the Danish Arctic. It's a common problem and a common
Yes.
challenge for everybody. Yeah.
And we all have the same atmosphere, and we all have the same carbon dioxide parts per million, and we all have the same methane
Mm.
parts per billion. We all are connected.
Yeah. It's just the capitalists, they are sort of just counting their money and thinking about themselves as totally exempt from the rest. I don't know. It's kind of hard to get into their psyche, or what is their problem. But maybe that's, you learn the rules of capitalism, and then you're taught in university and London School of Economics that your money is all you have to care about. Everything else is just irrelevant. I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah. So what
do
do
you
you
think? you first.
You first.
Go on. No, go on.
I can be very stubborn. Well, I was just going to bring up the Arctic, since we all share the same Arctic. And, one of your areas is forecasting and trend analysis. So I was just wondering, what your prognosis is, now that we're heading into winter.
Oh, yeah. It's kind of a mixed picture, because you have some indicators going like only the 14th lowest or something, and the other is to second lowest. But of course, the volume is the one that is second lowest.
That's the one to pay attention to. Well, I think that with El Nino is going to be releasing a lot of heat, so probably we're going to get a little bit of a bump in heat, and probably the next couple of years the heat's going to go up fast, and then maybe possibly plateau just a little bit before it jumps up again. But right now I think we're going to have some pretty intense heat climbing indicators. And all that heat is going to go into the Arctic as well. So we're going to have some wild weather the next couple of years as the Arctic is in its death gasps.
I think what you talked about last time on Talking South, the methane, is what we are sort of going into now, because you are getting this very warm ocean currents going up there into the Russian Arctic, the Siberian Arctic. And so, Methane Monster 3 that you presented last month is going to maybe get a huge revival on YouTube, which is the least thing to worry about. But this is maybe going to happen long before even you and I think it's going to happen, because these winters are not like the winters of your mother or your grandmother.
No. Pictures always speak 1,000 words, and I put a kind of before and after picture on my Facebook page this last week, and it was taken in the Arctic about 100 years ago, the top picture, and it showed this guy in this kind of rowboat going towards this massive ice shelf with these little, the peaks of some mountains sort of poking out. And then the next picture is present day, and they had figured out exactly where this picture was, so they tried to kind of set it up exactly, and they got a guy in a rubber boat going along and got him in exactly the same angle and snapped the picture, same distance, same framing. And the devastation, the sheer magnitude of change was unbelievable. There were no giant ice shelves that this guy was, they were gone. There was just like a little bit of snow cover and the mountains, So the Arctic's melting fast, and the temperature's going to go up. So, I think methane emissions are higher in the winter for some reason. Have you noticed that there are like methane spikes during the winter time?
Yeah, absolutely. And the October, November is also when the seawater on those Arctic shelves is warmest during the whole year. It's warmest in October, November.
Okay, that's interesting.
But back to the glaciers, you were talking about those two before and after pictures. You know, when you go, have you ever been? When you go to the mountains and to the glaciers, it's kind of you kind of immediately get this sadness. It's like you can sort of feel there is something very, very wrong about this, because it's not really logical, because when you see, you know, less ice and more rock, you know, it's like there's nothing really there telling you this is important or faithful, but I think maybe you get this very strong feeling from the nature itself, telling you, "Oh my God, this is not going to end well." You know, have you been to the Arctic yourself?
Well, oddly enough, I have not, nor have I been to Greenland itself. I've flown over Greenland a good bit. Like when I was growing up, my dad was stationed. I grew up in Southeast Asia, and we would make these long haul trips over to like, you know, Bangkok or someplace like that. I was in Laos, and flying over Greenland. So I had flown over Greenland many times, and then coming back from the Olympics, as I kind of documented this in the Arctic Methane Monsters Rapid Rise, I flew over Greenland. My sister had gotten tickets to the Olympics, actually, and I had just gone to the closing ceremony at the Olympics, and it was amazing. You know, it's just glorious and incredible, you know. And then just 2 days later, getting back on the airplane, British Air, and the plane was diverted in a more northerly route. So it flew right over Greenland in the end of August, beginning of September 2012. And everybody who studies the ice knows that, you know, 2012 was the big crash. 2012 was when the Arctic sea ice really crashed, and as far as sea ice extent. And 2012 was also when 95% of the surface of Greenland had melting activity on its surface, you know, so it was all covered, and that's what I saw. I flew over it, and it was just like a devastation. The whole thing was melting down. It was just like licorice rivers is all I could describe. You know, when these glaciers melt, it kind of stretches these like long black sooty things. You know, it gets very condensed. I mean, you know, it's not a pretty sight. You know, when a glacier is dying, it gets very condensed. It gets super dirty. And Jason Box had done a lot of work on that albedo effect in his dark ice project, you know. So yeah, I mean, you know, there's nothing like seeing it for yourself. Even though I haven't been to the Arctic and been to Greenland, I did fly over it enough to just, it was a significant event, and you know, it affected me emotionally enough where, you know, I became an information activist, that and other things probably. But no, I, unlike Peter Wadhams, who has been to the Arctic, you know, 55 times or something like that, you know, including going in a submarine and having it blow up on you. I mean, God knows the man's been through a lot, right? Jeez, no, I'm just very much an armchair eco-activist.
Yes. So there's a lot of things that you know, you could want to do or want to see during these final years of civilization. Like, I mean, imagine having drone cameras and whatever all around Greenland and the Arctic Sea. It would be it will be programming that even I would be wanting to see. But it's like it's kind of crazy because I think 5 years ago you had boys, what do you call it? Boys on the sea, like cameras, web cameras on the
Oh,
North Pole
buoys,
and stuff.
buoys,
Buoys?
buoys.
Buoys? Okay, sorry.
Buoys.
It's spelled really strange to a
It is.
Norwegian
Yeah.
to say. But you have webcams and buoys on the Arctic Ocean. But for the past 5 years, it's like, oh no, we can't afford that. We can't afford a single webcam out on the ice. It's like crazy.
Right, right. Well, they're losing data, and I don't necessarily think that it's malicious, but it's like things are breaking and they're not getting replaced. So, for example, methane stations. There's like methane stations that are falling into the sea because of permafrost melt, and they're just like these little shacks, basically kind of a little tiny bit inland, and the permafrost is melting and crumbling and falling into the sea. So, they're not getting replaced. And then there were buoys that it's very difficult to measure the gases and all the readings at the North Pole because it's so chaotic there, and it's not necessarily easy to stick that sort of thing right on the North Pole. But I think when they're getting damaged, they're not getting replaced, right? Is that what you're saying too?
No, but it's kind of a measurement or a data point that as well. If you have like a methane measuring station and it collapses, that is one big point of data, isn't
it? Data speaks louder than words. The absence. Why are you not reporting? Because I got destroyed by permafrost melt and abrupt climate change.
Yeah. Well, maybe we should round this off. I have no clock, so I don't know how long we'll be going. But when do you think the new video project is out? Can you give any estimate?
I don't know. Like all things, I have to try and just keep working on it and do the other things that I need to do as well. So, we have the soundtrack, and I've started to take notes, and I've actually reached out to one of our other eco activists, Jan, and he has a database called Open Intelligence, and it's you've seen this Open Intelligence database. So he's referred me to some certain articles, that kind of support, the content of whatever is being talked about. But it's going to be good. I like having these professional recordings. This is also recorded by Audm, AUDM podcast outfit, and they do an incredible job. So I hope they don't mind that we're crediting them, but I think that these videos have a lot of impact. I mean, clearly there's a need and there's a hunger for this type of documentary, which is really what we're making as documentaries, of the abrupt climate change sort.
Yeah. Is there any way it can be played on community TV or something? Have you tried that venue?
I don't know. I haven't really made any, forays in that direction, but it's professional enough, that if it wanted to play on the Hothouse Earth is an hour and 3 minutes. So, it could be played in an hour time slot on a public TV if anyone was edgy enough to take it on, because it doesn't pull any punches. They have to be willing to put up with content like that. Maybe some things, like where Democracy Now! Plays or something like that. But I haven't made any inquiries in that direction, really. I'm not really much of a marketeer
No. But maybe if you or we can take a sort of general contact, like an email or something to, let's say, public or local TV stations, lots of stations that just want to have some content to play.
Absolutely. I mean, it's brilliant content. I think it's very gripping. I mean, once you start watching it, if you're interested in climate at all, you cannot look away. It just kind of sucks you in. Yeah, so
absolutely.
It's good.
Well, I have to wish you all best luck with the project, and I think it's fantastic that you're able to, get all these clever people contributing, because you have to cooperate and contribute in order to.
You know what? It takes a village. I'm a project manager by profession. Nothing ever gets done by one person. You might be more aware of one person than another, but it takes a village. It takes a massive amount of energy and contributions from the internet. People don't even know they're contributing, and their stuff is ending up in this video, which we have claimed on the fair use copyright law of 1976, right?
Yeah, fair use. That's my problem with Winston Churchill, is that I didn't use his speech fairly. I took the entire speech, and put it into YouTube. But if I can always quote from it. But I think fair use is a very good. It's actually one of the best copyright laws in the world, the American Fair Use clause, because it says that you can use it as part of something you are making, if you are commenting on it. And,
I mean, just as long as you're not making any money from it, I think it's fair game. And what is going to end up happening, I bet, is that we're going to have much higher quality free content on places, venues like YouTube, than there will be in a more paid arena, because we can use whatever footage we want due to the fair use clause.
Fantastic. There's not much good you can say about America, but I really dig your fair use and your free speech, free speech regulation.
Well, we'll see. There's a lot of bad things happening in this country.
Yeah, we can't go into all the bad things about America in this little video.
I thought we were going to keep
two good things
to half an hour.
Yeah, two good things is free speech and fair use. That's excellent, I think. And the internet. We can't forget that America gave us the internet.
That's right. We did do some good things there.
Absolutely. Okay. Thank you very much, Jennifer, and I hope to see you back as soon as possible. Maybe after the next video is done. I don't know.
Yeah, we'll have to see how long that's going to take me. I've got some plans, to kind of simplify it. My biggest problem is to take thousands and thousands of pieces of information and get them all shuffled into the right places. No, you go over there. You go over there. Well, it's been a pleasure, Torsten. Thanks for having me on again.
That kind of sounds like my novel. The sketch for my novel is like, I want to do everything in one book, but you can't do that.
I know. We want to bite off so much because our minds are so active.
Maybe it will be 2019, or maybe we will be able to catch up just before Christmas. We'll see. And again, I wish you all the best with the project.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Torsten, and thanks for being so supportive. Appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you, and see ya.
Bye-bye.